and welcome to Based on Faith. Today I'm going to be reviewing Who Brings Forth the Wind by Wick. So here's the book, Who Brings Forth the Wind. This book is the third book in the Kensington Chronicles and the fourth book chronologically, and the genre of this book is Christian fiction and romance. And with that, I'm going to say welcome to Based on Faith, where I, Faith, talk about books based on my faith in Christ. So, as we usually do, I'm going to open with a non-spoilery summary of the book. And this book opens with Tanner. Tanner is our male protagonist, who was the second son of the former Duke of Cambridge. And his mom had abandoned him when he was younger. And, the book also opens with him discovering that his wife, who was cheating with his older brother, who was the past Duke before him, died in a fire with his brother. So that was the start of the book. So Tanner is described by another character to be one of the greatest cynics in England. And after meeting Tanner, we meet Stacy. Stacy is our female protagonist. She's turning 21 soon, and she's visiting England to see her aunt, who is trying to marry her off to someone. Someone sensible, of course, but the aunt is just like, you're turning 21, woman. Okay, so Stacy and Tanner meet, and Tanner is immediately attracted to Stacy, and this attraction is mutual. But the thing is, Lucinda's aunt, who is trying to marry her off, is opposed to that specific marriage because she's the one who would describe Tanner to be like the greatest cynics in England. And she's like, Tanner and Stacy are not the type of two people you put together, because we see that Stacy is a soft-spoken person who would rather yield than have any type of confrontation occur. So she's like, this person is selfish and is used to having his way. This one is used to like being selfless because she doesn't want to, and she's just like, that won't work out well. The aunt eventually agrees to have them married to each other because things happen, situations occur, and the aunt is like, okay, I see that you two truly like each other, so I guess what can I do? So they eventually just like I said, they eventually work out the issue with Lucinda, but Tanner's unresolved trauma from the past, and the trauma I'm talking about is the trauma from the start of the book. And this trauma is like from all the main female figures in his life betraying him. So this haunts Tanner, and we can clearly see this. And the trauma causes major issues in Tanner and Stacy's relationship. Yeah, throughout the book, we just see that Stacy, who is this soft-spoken person, will have to learn to stand up for herself, and Tanner, who is like this huge cynic and who is quite selfish, would have to learn to put the needs of other people ahead of his own needs. And I'm just going to read a quick excerpt. I know it's something I've stopped doing recently, but I just feel like I need to read this quick excerpt from the book that has to do with Tanner's reaction to his mother's betrayal. So this is Stacy speaking. I didn't know your mother died when you were young. Tanner says, she didn't. She just didn't want me. Stacy looked into his wonderful dark eyes and shook her head. How could she not want you? Tanner shrugged. The pain in his eyes was only slight. The years had dulled the ache. She never wanted any of us, not my father, my brother, or me. Sometimes I can still hear her telling my father she was a fool for having married him, and an even greater fool for giving him sons. So yeah, that's just going to be hard, hearing your mother say this, like, she didn't want you, and she was a fool for having given birth to you, and then your wife then cheats on you with your older brother. Bruh, thank God for therapists now, because man, Tanner needed therapy. He needed therapy. Like, you could clearly see it in his relationship with Stacy. Okay, moving on very quickly. What did I particularly like about this book? I'm going to talk about things I particularly liked about this book, and first thing I'll be talking about is my favorite character and why they were my favorite character. So my favorite character in this book would either be Roddy, Lucinda's friend, or Price, Tanner's valet. And the reason why I'm going with both of them is because both of them were wonderfully supportive of Stacy in this tumultuous relationship she had with Tanner. Like, there were certain people who were supportive of Stacy but turned it into a controlling type of support, and there were other people who were just like plain not supportive. But these two people were like healthy supports. So I really like that because Stacy needed that. What problems did the main characters encounter? Like I I said earlier, unresolved trauma was like something they had to walk through in this book, and I don't see a lot of books that talk about things like this. So I think this is one of the things that I particularly like about this book specifically. And yeah, let's just thank God for the fact that we have therapy today. And I would say unresolved trauma and also meddling family members. Like, there were certain family members that were just like, mind your. I mean, support from family members is wonderful, but there is a line between supporting somebody and trying to control them, and there were just specific people who were like, that line was non-existent to them. Did this story keep me guessing? I would say it definitely did, yes. Can I say it kept me guessing? Because the first time I read this book, I was like 12 years old, and a decade has passed. So I'm just like, I've read this book like 6 or 7 times since then, so I pretty much know what's happening in the book already. I know the slow parts of the book, I know the fast parts of the book, I know the parts of the book that excites me, I know the parts of the book that I just have to struggle through. So I think rereading it, I was like, wow, this is a very interestingly paced book, and for a person who will be reading it for the first time, it's definitely surprising, because unlike other books, and mainly even just like the other 3 books in this series, we see that this is not a book of our characters finding their way to love, like, oh, we are finding our way to how we like each other. No, it's not that. We settled that, like, it was almost like a love at first sight thing for Tana and Stacy. So we settled the whole thing of, do we like each other, do we not like each other, in like the very first few in the very first 100 pages of the book. The main issue in this book is, these are struggles that married people face, and this is how this married couple overcame those struggles that they faced. I particularly like this book also because a lot of books are happy ever after type of books, but this book is like, they had the wedding that comes before the happy ever after, and then the book kind of like just takes us into that happy ever after and shows us that it's really not a happy ever after. Because to any other person, a small town girl, because Stacey came from like a small town to London to visit her aunt, and that's how she met Tanner. So a small town girl coming to London and then meeting the Duke, a young Duke, and from there becoming like somebody who was 21, who was already old by standards, then meeting a Duke, and him falling in love with her, them getting married. That's a fairy tale story. Hollywood will eat that thing up. But the book is like, yeah, it's a fairy tale story, it's wonderful, but there are issues that these people have to overcome, and we just get to see all that, and I just love that. I love the way I went through the struggles of their marriage with them, and how they all overcame it, and how they grew in overcoming it. Character development. Alright, yeah, it was just very refreshing for me, and that's why this book is like still one of my favorites, all-time favorites, to be honest. Okay, so my favorite part of this book will have to be a part that involves both shoes and introductions. Anybody who reads the book, if they come back to me saying both shoes and introductions, you understand what I'm talking about. Like, you fully understand the scene I'm talking about, but I can't say much about it, because if I start talking too much, that would be a spoiler. So that's all I'm gonna say on that. But that part was just like so cute. Like, whenever I'm reading that part of the book, I'm just like, oh my god. It's like sometimes I even go back and I'm like, what? I would say when I'm reading that part of the book, I read it over like 3 or 4 different times before I move on from the book. That's how much I love that particular part of the book. I also like how this book shows us that marriage is 100%, it's not 50-50 from both sides, but rather each partner has to put 100% into marriage for it to work. And there are also situations when you realize, situations like abuse, where you realize that you cannot be putting more than 100%, because marriage is not do and die. If your partner is abusing you, please just step back from the marriage. If it's counseling, you will seek. If it's therapy, your partner will go to. Please just don't die inside marriage. It's not do or die. It's not. All right. So things I disliked about this book. I think the one particular thing that, even from the very first time I read this book till now, that I dislike about this book has to be Sonny. And when I say Sonny, I'm talking about Sonny from The Hawk and the Jewel, because we also see them in here. We saw them they were the main characters in The Hawk and the Jewel. They were um side characters in Wings of the Morning, which is the book before this, and they were also side characters in this book, Who Brings Forth the Wind. So, in the author's attempt to like keep us updated, keeping up with the Hawkesbury's, the author gave us way too much detail, and the fact that the first time I read this book, like this was the first book in the series I read, I was very confused about what these characters were. I was like, why are you giving me a family map of Hawkesbury family? These are side characters. Like, what's my business with that? Why are you giving me so much detail about somebody that's giving birth? One auntie is doing something somewhere. And honestly, there were just way too many characters. And whenever I would get to that part of the book, before I read the Hawk and the Jewel, of course, I would honestly just skip it because, and honestly, as a reader, one thing I try not to do is skip parts in a book because I understand that the author puts effort into writing that part of books. Yeah, so it's either I'm dropping it or I'm reading everything. But when I get to that particular part of this book, I skip it because I'm like, okay, nonsense. That I don't keep up with the Hawkesbury's. If you wanted to like make us keep up with them, like write a tiny novella or something about them, but I don't want me of fair. I don't want. Yeah, they were just a bit too present for my liking. Their presence in Wings of the Morning was sufficient, was good, but here it was like they just brought the entire family. Even situations where they did not need to be in, they put them in there, and I just was like, this is way too much. And one more thing I also didn't dislike, I think you get that from what I've been saying in this review so far, is the way Tana treated Stacey at times because I felt like she was way too good for him, but character development, I guess. So, rounding up my review, I would recommend this book to all readers from ages 12 and up. It's a clean Christian romance that edified me with, there were times that they were putting some scriptures when some characters were going through like some very difficult things, and it's just a very nice book overall. And one thing I would say is that the title of this book is from Psalms 135. Psalms 135 verse 7. I think it will probably be a more the Who Brings for the Wind line will be more present in the KJV version. But in the NKJV version, it says, it causes the vapors to ascend from the ends of the earth. It makes lightning for the rain. It brings the wind out of his treasuries. So it's like, who brings forth the wind? God brings forth the wind, And Psalms 135 generally is just a psalm to God praising him for his creation and his redemption. I think you would have guessed by now, but like this book is like my all-time favorite. It's like one of the first few novels I read when I started reading as a younger reader. So it's just like one of those books that have held tight to me. Let's rewind the timeline. A neighbor first lent me this book, and then after reading it, I was like, I want to read it again. So when my mom had a bookstore when I was younger. So when she was like stocking up books, I made her buy a copy of this so that I could borrow it and reread it. And then after I was able to like reread the book from a bookstore, I then went to buy my own personal copy of the book. And when I moved to the US, I left the book behind in Nigeria, and I then got another copy. I bought another copy on Google Books. So let's just say this book has been following me everywhere, and I am happy to be able to share it with you all here. Yeah. So because of the way I've held this book so tightly, I'm not giving it anything lower than the 9.8. If I take away all the nostalgia that is associated with this book for me, I'm probably going to give it like a 9 out of 10 because it's a well-written book, and because of just all the things that I mentioned earlier about how it's different. It's different in going into the happily ever after and deconstructing that for us and showing us that it's not really always happily ever after. Of course we know that, but sometimes books just cloud your reality, and it's just nice to see that in a book. So yeah, this is a really good book, and I would say if you enjoyed this review, you just might enjoy checking out my author review of The Knight and the Dove. The Knight and the Dove is another book in this Kensington Chronicles series. In The Knight and the Dove, Megan, the very willful daughter of a duke, has to navigate an unexpected betrothal to an earl who was expecting to be betrothed to her elder sister. Yes, that is a very complicated situation, and hilarious. Yeah, with that, I would say thank you for coming to the end of my review. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to know when I post new videos. And please also like this video if you enjoyed this video or not. It's up to you, but please like it. And have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.